So what is small-scale property development and why is it so important? My name is Ritchie Clapson. I've been in the property industry now over 40 years and I'm a chartered structural engineer. And in this episode, I'm going to be telling you exactly why small scale is so important, if not beautiful, in small-scale property development. First of all, what is property development? Well, the definition, in my definition, is actually changing something to something else. It's not a doer-upper. So let's get that out of the way. It's not a quick flip, it's not a quick house turnaround into something. It's actually taking something and repurposing it. So it could be some land, or actually, if we want to actually de-risk and we want to get the path of least resistance, it's converting an existing commercial building, because right now, that's where the opportunities are. And converting those commercial buildings into something else, well, let's take it into residential, because that's going to give us the biggest uplift. So that's development. So what's small scale in that context? Well, we need to think about, again, de-risking. So for me, there's a few important things about small scale. First of all, small scale is generally 18 to 24 months, relatively quick in and out. Why is that important? Well, what we're looking at here is we're looking at what goes on in the world. The world changes. Think back to COVID. Who would have thought then? And imagine if you had a project which was running 3, 4, 5 years. And some projects can. You're actually spanning very, very different times. If we look prior to COVID, after COVID, that was massive changes in business. And of course, massive changes in property. And property fluctuates. It goes up and down. Interest rates go up and down. Demand goes up and down. So we want to make sure that we're relatively quick in and out. If you go down a scheme that's got full planning, and we'd suggest you don't, because small scale we can do under permitted development rights as well. But if you go down a scheme with full planning, you could be a year, 2, 3 years down the road before you get planning permission. I was actually at an event recently and someone said 4 years it took them to get their planning permission. 4 years. From when they started to the point they actually get on site and then complete, that's a 5 or 6 year project. And of course, as I say, things can change during that time. Maybe for the better, but maybe not. So what I want to do is think about de-risking. So if you get in and get out in 18 to 24 months, not only have you got some money in your pocket, you've got that opportunity cost, you're actually de-risking because you're working in a period that generally you can try and define. Of course, anything can happen again, but what we're looking at is we're looking at a period where we're likely to better predict ahead. We're likely to think maybe we've got a stable government during that period. So 18 to 24 months, relatively quick, in and out. Then it's about the team. And this is about outsourcing. This again is about de-risking, because most businesses, successful businesses on the face of it, fell because of cash flow. They fell because of a lack of cash. Not because they're not profitable, but they can't keep the cash coming in. Think about this. Think about property development, which can be disjointed. You might better get one project up and running, and then actually your first project might finish. You might have a second one up and running, but then there may be a gap between the second and the third. Well, you don't want a whole team. You don't want a head office that you've all got to sit there and pay for. Overheads is what kills businesses. That's what kills the cash flow. Wouldn't it be great the minute that the demand is gone, you get rid of them? Well, that's what we're talking about in small-scale property development. I'm talking about having a small team, or better still, no team. No team at all employed. Of course, you need to have a team, but what we're going to do is we're going to outsource that model. It's about being the CEO and outsourcing as much as you can. Think about this. Our consultants, our architect, our structural engineer, our project manager, our cost consultant, our contractor, they're all outsourced people. We don't have to employ them. Common misconception, a lot of people come to me and say, yeah, but how can I afford to pay for all these teams? When do I employ them? You don't. You don't need to. No difference if you went to the dentist and you got your teeth done, you don't employ a dentician, do you? You go to that dentist twice a year perhaps, you pay for their time. During the time you're there, they check your teeth out and away you go. And obviously you can afford to get the best in because you're only paying for a few hours at a time. The same principle applies here in property development. We're going to get a structural engineer, an architect, a project manager and so on, all on a consultancy basis. We're going to bring them in for our project. They're going to price a fee for our project, hopefully fixed price lump sum. They deliver our project for us, and once our project's finished, they're gone. We've got no requirement to keep paying them. Hopefully, if we've got a second project, we can engage with them on a second project. If we don't like them, we just get rid of them. We haven't got any employment contracts. We haven't got any PAYE. We haven't got any national insurance. We haven't got any payroll to run. We haven't got to get rid of them and get redundancies. It's just a consultant. If they're good, you keep them, and if you don't, you get rid of them. So one thing a lot of people get stuck on is they think, I want to get a team. I want to pull a whole team together. I need this big office. You don't. You can actually be a property developer from home. Work at home. Work up in your spare room. Work in your study. Better still, because it's a nice place to work, is get a little serviced office. Serviced office. You don't need a big fancy office. People don't necessarily need to come to you. Nice little serviced office, psychologically, it's great. You can go to work. You can go and spend time at work, and you can go and spend time in an office, and then when you go home, you're at home. But you don't need it. For me, that would just be a personal preference. I like the mix of working at home and working in an office. And better mix all those things up is important. Of course, better still, what about a laptop lifestyle? If you had a big office and you had all these staff, you've got to go into the office, haven't you? You've got to go and lead that team. Well, you don't need to, because it's all outsourced. They all have their own offices. So actually, you can be sat on a beach if you want, or you can be sat in a restaurant anywhere in the world. On your laptop, have a virtual meeting with your team, pop back and see them next week when you're back from holidays. You can work in that way. So important, have a small team, or better still, a no team. Outsourcing is absolutely key. Then have developments in what I call the need market. The need market. Need market is 1, 2, 3 bed properties. Above that is the want market, okay? That's going to be your 4 and your 5 bed properties. What's the difference? Let me explain. The want market, relatively straightforward, is properties that we want. We want the 4-bed house, the 5-bed house, the study, the swimming pool, whatever it is we're going to get, the big double garage, but they're wants. We don't need them. And so what happens if there's a little bit of unsettlement in the world? What happens if, something goes on maybe with the economy? What happens if something goes on elsewhere, maybe in the family? It's a bit unsettled, isn't it? People then don't move to the want market. But the need market, the 1, the 2, the 3 bed properties, that market is always moving. That market is always buoyant. Why is it buoyant? Well, 1 bed properties, people get together, don't they? They want to leave home. They want to leave mum and dad. They want to get into their own places. People get separated. They want to go and buy a little 1-bed unit. 2 beds, well, people get together. They have kids. Or maybe it's a couple of professionals getting together, want to get their own place, have a nice little flat. 3 beds, more kids. Pets, cats, dogs, all those sorts of things. And that market is always moving. People are moving jobs. They're relocating. And generally people are slightly conservative when they do that. So that marketplace, the 1, 2, 3 bed properties, is the need market. That's where you want to work as a small scale developer, not the want market, not the 4 or not the 5 bed properties. And then finally, this is really important. You want to work in what's a real sweet spot. It's a sweet spot that I've defined after being in this industry over 40 years. And it's work between 5 and 20 units. 5 or 20 flats, 5 or 20 houses. Do not go below 5. Below 5 is where the local builders will play. And of course, you can't compete. They will often go in and look to buy a site or an existing commercial building that they could convert into a number of units up to about 5. The reason a lot of builders will do this is they have it as a project, as a fallback project that they can use between other projects that they have going on. A lot of these builders will have their staff, their team, their labourers, their workforce, their bricklayers, their plasterers, their electricians and so on. And they don't want to let them go, because if they let them go, they're going to go to another builder and they'll lose them. So often they buy themselves a little project, 1, 2, 3 houses, and actually then they put their team onto those houses in between their other projects. They've always got a bit of a fallback to go to. And they're not competing on the same price. They're not looking to get 20% on gross development value. They're happy just to make a markup on the development because they keep their team going. How can you compete with that? You can't. Why do I say above 5? Well, most of these builders run out of steam, run out of cash above the sort of 4/5 units, because they normally fund it just through their trade accounts and a bit of cash that they've got. The money you need to do 5 units and above is a lot more substantial. That's when they normally would then become developers. So work above 5. Why below 20? Well, Above 20 is where the regional developers are. I'm not talking about the national developers, the Barratts, the Persimmon, the Bellway, but it'd be local developers that have built themselves up. You'll probably know the names, the brands, you'll see them around and about in your area, that are often building sites of 30, 40, but normally above 20. They don't normally go below 20. For them, economies of scale doesn't work. They want to actually maximize their profit, and they're going to maximize that if they're going to build out bigger schemes. So stick in that sweet spot between 5 and 20 units. And why not just stick there? Why not just stick to small scale development? Because how much money can we make? Well, I don't know. What is a one-bedroom flat, for example, in your area, wherever you live? Let's assume it's 100,000. If you develop 10 £100,000 flats, that's £1 million. 20% profit on that £1 million is £200,000. Is that going to be enough for you? Because we're talking about projects where we're 18 to 24 months, relatively quick in and out. And if you overlap those projects, you could be easily delivering one of those a year. Many of our students here are actually delivering several a year. But if you just delivered one of those a year at £200,000 profit, is that enough for you? Is that a good place to start? So you can see here, when we're talking about small scale development, it is so important to understand those parameters. 18 to 24 months, relatively quick in and out. A small or no team at all. Have developments in the need market, the 1, the 2, the 3 bed, not the want market, and work between those 5 and 20 units. That's absolutely paramount. Hopefully that describes and makes sure that you understand what small scale development is. And if you have liked this episode, please like and subscribe. And if there's anything else you'd like us to record or put an episode out in the future, please put some comments below and we'll see what we can do. See you in the next episode.